we're not in any hurry because I'm told they've held the gates at Jazz Fest because of the rain.
Is that right?
Yeah. So you can all relax.
Meaning what? Some of the early acts are canceled?
Oh, just what details, yeah. We gotta play filler too.
Okay. Well, if you all would take your seats, we'd like to get started with our last panel of the day. Please don't forget that we will be back here tomorrow with the final day of the Sync Up Conference. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. We have Anya Grunman, the director of NPR Music, will be here. And we also have a very high-level panel that's going to be talking about how to convert social media followers into customers. So if you have 30,000 Twitter fans or followers or Facebook friends or whatever they might be, people who like your YouTube video, how do you get those people to come and buy your stuff, like your tickets or your T-shirts or even your CDs or MP3s? So that's tomorrow, so come on back. And right now, please welcome our very distinguished panel of guests who are going to talk to us about how they go about the arduous task of building a business on the road. Take it away, Dave Margulies from the High Sierra Music Festival, who is going to moderate this panel. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Scott, and thanks to Scott and Kia and the Jazz and Heritage Foundation for providing the container here for all of us to gather for the 2 weekends during Jazz Festival. It's a great event, and a lot of hard work goes into it, so thanks to Scott and Kia and the staff for putting this on. Good afternoon, almost afternoon. We're here to talk about building a successful touring business, and before I get into having each of the panelists introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their story, I'd like to get a little bit of a read on the room. How many musicians do we have in the audience with us today? Wow, beautiful. And how many folks are involved in artist management in the room? And how about another component of an artist's career? Agents? Excellent. Any publicists? Fantastic. Good cross-section. Excellent. Well, we're going to start on the far end here with John Phillips from Silverback Music from LA. John, welcome. Welcome. Hello. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, and we're going to go down the line and let everybody introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their background and what they do.
Well, my company is Silverback Management. It's based in Los Angeles, California, the other LA. I started representing Ivan Neville and Dumpster Funk about 2 years ago, so significance as far as this event is working with New Orleans artists and being outside of New Orleans. And for me, it's been about trying to cross-pollinate what New Orleans music is about and the foundation and sort of heritage that it is, and cross-pollinate that with sort of California music and styles and demographics that don't necessarily gravitate or know about the influence of, you know, funk and jazz and the heritage of New Orleans. So that's sort of been my mission as far as taking the sounds and heritage and culture here and trying to cross-pollinate that with a more California sort of West Coast demographic.
For those of you that don't know, John worked with Sublime and manages Slightly Stoopid, so he's had a lot of success in the California world and the California music, and also on a national and international basis. What was your motivation for wanting to work with a New Orleans-based act?
Came here in '91 for Mardi Gras and been back every year since. It's like, you know, something fuels you to come back, and you're driven towards just the vibe and what New Orleans actually means. It's such a cross-section of American culture and music, so it's really driven me. I've been passionate to try to like bring that to other people and try to fulfill that experience and let people know that that's really a part of our culture and music, you know.
I read an interview with you where you spoke about the organic nature of touring around the business model that the Grateful Dead established. Is that something that you took into your approach working with Sublime and Slightly Stoopid, and does that carry into your approach in building a base for Dumpster Funk and your other touring acts. He also works with Fishbone, and if you want to talk about your roster, please go ahead. This is your time.
Okay. Well, as far as touring, I mean, that's obviously become the lion's share of a lot of the music business. It was, I think, a record business. Before last 10 years, the record side of things was the lion's share of what the music business was about. I think it shifted to touring, and so that's become an important part of the model to build a career and a foundation for an artist is to tour, because you can't really rely on the traditional music business things that were in existence and were, the income generating traditional means of an artist's existence over the years was a record deal or something like that. Now it's become the emphasis on touring. So for me, it's been about trying to build artists that can be successful on the road and have a career developing their touring base, and using the other things as sort of promotional, to have a foundation that you can continue to grow. And with Dumpster Funk, and as far as correlating that with the Grateful Dead model, being from California, like that was a big influence for me, is seeing a band like that existed outside of the traditional music industry with their own sort of economy and a touring-based model. So it's been a big influence in terms of any of the projects I work with, is to try to build that and build a fan base that's subcultural in a certain context, that exists within the band. And so I've tried to apply that to, every band that I work with. Slightly Stupid, Dumpster Funk, Fishbone.
Tony Ciaccio, next to John, works primarily, I guess exclusively, with New Orleans-based musicians. Tony, tell us a little bit about Hypersoul, your company, and how you take a New Orleans-specific based company and bring that to the greater world.
Well, I think this kind of goes back. Our company was started after Katrina, and our background. I'm an attorney, but also had worked on the festival creation and production side, and after Katrina, just kind of did a rethinking of what it is that I wanted to do, and so then we started working with some artists. The first artist we had was Big Sam, who at that point in time, his band after Katrina had kind of scattered, and I knew Sam, and we said, well, let's give this a try. We don't know what's going on out there, what the fate of New Orleans is going to be. So this was at that that critical time. And we started with that and applied a model of just trying to use some common sense building to get the band back together, back on the road. And we now work with a number of local New Orleans artists that we are focused with them building their careers first in New Orleans and then outside. And I think it's not something from a touring perspective. I totally agree with what John is saying about the money and the livelihood being built there, and especially with so many of the New Orleans acts, that it's about that experience and about sharing that culture and sharing that moment. And we have served sort of in a capacity with some of the bands that we work with that are a little bit smaller than where John's coming from. We've kind of occupied multiple roles, doing the publicity and basically doing whatever you can, and then ultimately, as the band gets bigger, try to assemble a bigger team and keep putting those building blocks together to make for a successful touring business.
So you feel it's imperative that the artists develop a solid, strong base here in their hometown of New Orleans before they take it to the world at large?
In New Orleans, it really helps, because a lot of places, a lot of events outside of New Orleans have a special place for New Orleans cultural music. And if they're known in New Orleans, we're able to go out there and help them market in these other areas based on their New Orleans business. And I also think that gets to the point of, when are you ready to actually tour? And that brings up, if they're if you don't have the local home base, and it might be premature to jump out there, and very difficult and expensive as well.
So that brings us to our next panelist, John Michael Rouchelle, who has a fascinating story. And we were talking a little bit earlier about building a team and all the successful components you need to create a successful touring business. And John Michael, whose act was John Michael Rouchelle, I guess for 6 or 7 years or something?
Well, I started it with the My Name is John
My
Michael
name is John
thing,
Michael.
yeah.
In
It's
2008.
I bought the domain name, mynameisjohnmichael.com, and I wrote, recorded, and released a song a week for the entire year on that website. And I allowed fans to like vote and pick their favorite songs, and we assembled a record from it. It was like very Web 2.0 early days, you know, like kind of thing. And so a band came from that. One iteration was like, you know, the kind of indie rock thing, and then it sort of morphed into this second iteration, which was like a horn-based kind of soul thing. And now I'm in a place where like I've sort of stepped to the side of My Name is John Michael and just doing things by my birth name, John Michael Rouchelle. I'm really an egomaniac because I use my name a lot, but I'm realizing that now. But it's like a different thing. We slimmed the band down, and you know, and doing something different. So I'm the token artist up here today.
Do you feel like do you agree with the idea that you need to establish a solid base here in New Orleans before you can take that to the larger world, or do you feel it's based upon the constructs of your team and what you're able to accomplish given the abilities of the members of your team?
Well, I think, you know, growing a fan base in your hometown's always good. I mean, it's, you know, it's a microcosm of the bigger world, right? I mean, but as far as New Orleans specifically, I think it's an interesting thing because it depends upon what you do. I mean, you know, my friend King James back there plays every Monday night at BJ's in the Bywater, and he's great, and he's amazing, and he grows that way. Or, you know, I know Sam used to do every X night at the Funky Butt, or every night at the Blue Nile kind of thing. And that works for certain genres of music. Now, if you're like a hip-hop kid, or an indie rock kid, or like, you know, a dubsteppy, you know, like EDM kind of kid, it might not be the best thing to do, the sort of residency idea to start. It just depends. You know, I think what's great about the music industry now, and why I think, you know, things like Sync Up are so great, is because I think every act is specific. It needs its own spin. There's no boilerplate, oh, you get a record deal and you become famous thing anymore. You know, everything's sort of different. For me, it was, we'll grow by doing specific shows and grow locally, and then start doing short tours, you know, 3-4 nights, and then eventually strung together a full tour and, you know, 2 weeks, then a month, and then eventually somehow found an agent and found, you know, all those things and built the team that way, you know. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I mean, I think you're more, I mean, I say this in the highest of compliments, I think you're more of a pop star. And then a you know, a jam it out, you know, grind it out in the clubs kind of an artist. And I say that with in no disrespect at all.
Well, Dave, I don't know if you know how much I've grinded it out in the clubs, but
okay,
that's sort of
you're
been my
ready,
life
then you're
since
ready for that.
2008.
Well, then talk
I'm
to
just
us about what it meant for you to put the brakes on with My Name is John Michael, to basically put everything on hold for a year and go from doing most things yourself to assembling a team where you have a highly respected booking agent, a highly respected manager, and an A1 team at your
yeah,
side.
I mean, Marc and I, who you're going to meet in a second, Marc's my manager. He's great. He's amazing. You're going to hear all about his clients, and your head's going to explode. But we, you know, last October, we kind of had a discussion where we basically said, okay, we've done this, we've been working together for a couple months, you know, at this point, 6-7 months, or 8 months, or regardless, 6, let's say 6. And basically we said, let's stop and start over. Let's just start, you know? Like, you've built this, I built the My Name Is thing, and there were certain decisions that I had made that were right, along the way. And there were certain decisions that I made that were wrong, but because I made this one decision, it becomes that decision begets these decisions, right? And so eventually you come down and you're like, oh, well, we can't fix that decision that we made on, that you made by yourself in 2009 kind of thing. Like having a huge band, Like it was like the first iteration was 6 people, the second was 6, sometimes 7 people. And if any of you ever try to tour that way, good luck, because I'm severely in debt because of it, just being real. But so it was one of those things. It's like, okay, let's change the name of it, slim it down, and make it economically feasible to tour,
Was there a lot of fear about losing the momentum and the traction that you'd built up as My Name is John Michael to now going out as John Michael Rouchelle and?
Sure, but I mean, the one thing that I have, the one thing that I think's gotten me to where I am is just commitment. It's like, the thing of, this is what we're going to do it. I don't care. We could fall on our face, but we're going to do it. I mean, that was like the 52 songs thing. It was like, I'd never written songs before. I'd never sung on a recording before. But I just said, okay, I've been a guitar player forever. I'm going to do this. There's the deep end, jump in. And so, Marc and I trust Marc inherently. I mean, to a great degree, sadly, as he shakes his head. But we just decided, we were like, look, we're going to do something different. And not to mention musically, it's a bit different. Like we just released an EP, which you should all buy on iTunes or at the Rhythm Emporium of Jazz Fest. Shill, shill, shill. It's only $5 on iTunes. It's cheap. It's good. And musically it was a bit different. I was in a different headspace, than what we had sort of done with the My Name is John Michael thing. So it felt like the perfect time to kind of say, okay, pause. Let's do something different. Let's do this the right way and build ground up now that we have this team, Because when it was just me sort of grinding it out, it was, it's tough.
Marc Allan is with Red Light Management, and I will let him speak about his clients. But Marc, first, what was the motivation for you to encourage John Michael to basically deconstruct this and build it back with a new beginning?
I had been through this before with another client who had a similar trajectory and was seeing success nationally, but the success wasn't enough, and we were starting to see cracks, certain ceilings in place on what they were doing, and I saw, the music was different, but I saw some similarities in kind of a best practices way, and so when John Michael and I were talking about My Name Is and what the actual lifespan could be, and I have history working with large bands as well, meaning 7-piece bands, and as I told John Michael when we were talking about it, I said, I got a band that's been around for 35 years with 7 people in it, and I mean, they're doing fine, but it's it's not a road paved with gold when you're out there doing that. But from a creative standpoint, first and foremost, while we were talking about all these things, I said, well, how many different times are you going to be My Name is John Michael with someone coming to something and then seeing something different? And I think that he's a young enough guy, and it was at a place that we could take this risk because the reward, I'm gonna get shot in about 5 years for saying this, but the reward should be that much greater, and it should free him up creatively, and it should allow him to not be tied to any one image that anybody else had of him, but it gave him the opportunity to deliver these songs in the way that he wanted to deliver these songs without people saying, hey, where are the horns? Or, hey, what happened to this guy or that guy? So, it was just, for me, it was just a matter of the timing seemed right to take that chance. I mean, it's a risk-reward factor, and, hopefully the reward pays off. I think it will. I mean, the songs are there, so, that's...
We were talking beforehand, and John Michael, you referred to Marc as the captain of the ship. Talk about...
I would tend to disagree, by the way.
Well, talk about the components of building a successful team to enable your career to succeed on a national and international touring level.
Marc's really, really humble, so he's just going to disagree with all these things. But I think, with management stuff, for what I've realized is it's a partnership. Like we were talking about the idea of how the idea of an artist hiding behind the Wizard of Oz curtain and bestowing their genius upon people and things of that nature, right, is just kind of a silly idea at this point where we are now. And it's really a partnership of saying, okay, what can we do together to, to grow the thing? And I think, for where I was, when the whole thing started, it was like I had a close friend managing the band, right, of a similar age to me. And we were sort of on the thing of, okay, let's go make mistakes together. And then we started stringing tour dates together, and then it became this like 2-week, we could do 2 weeks on the road on the East Coast. And Marc actually back then helped us. I think you gave us a date or two along the way. And so, it became that thing. And so then we got back and we played CMJ. And, because we had done good ticket numbers in New York, the Mercury Lounge said, or CMJ people said, hey, come back and play CMJ. If you're not familiar with CMJ, it's basically South by Southwest in New York City. It's that kind of thing, And so we went back and did that, and there was 2 booking agencies in the room. One who I'm currently with, and one that will remain nameless. The group of people from the one that will remain nameless were in the back of the room texting and things of that nature and didn't care. And the booking agency that I'm currently with, the people were in the front dancing, having a good time. And so, we just built. It just built and built and built. And eventually, I parted ways with the first manager and called Marc because we had been friends since 2008, And team building's hard, man. If you're an artist out there, it's really difficult. I mean, it's hard to write songs if you're just sitting around trying to write songs. It's hard to write songs, perform, build a team, build a fan base all at the same time. But like all I can tell you is like just keep doing it. It's hard and you've got to multitask, but I'm not the smartest person on the planet and I did it. So you can do it too, I don't know. I know that's my like PSA moment, but it's
so
true.
how important the components of the team, in addition to being humble, Marc's also an attorney and worked as an attorney on the legal side of things. How important do you see the roles of record company, attorney, publicist, in addition to management and artist?
I need all of them. Record label is a kind of loose term nowadays. I find myself running a record label for another client and putting out music wherever we see fit. And John Michael and I continue to talk about new and creative ways to find to find new audiences, to find new fans. And a lot of the times we wear a lot of hats in the beginning. And I think Tony, you were talking about that a little earlier too. And but when you're building. When you have an artist and you're seeing the growth and you see people that want to come on board, I mean, a lot of that just has to do with the same passion that got John Michael to start writing songs and the same passion that got me to do what I do. I mean, I always kid, I'm an attorney by trade, and if I wanted to really make any real money, I'd go practice law. But I couldn't do anything but what I do, and John Michael and I had this conversation. I feel like I have it with every artist that I work with at some point, which is, we all do what we do because we can't. And this is my kind of speech on the music business in general. I think the guys would agree with me. We do what we could do because we can't do anything else. It's not that we can't function doing anything else. We can't think of a life of doing anything else, and that's kind of how I look at the people on my clients' teams as well. It's John Michael's a very smart guy, and a great songwriter, and could have a lot of successes anywhere else. But when you look in his eyes, you know that he's not going to do anything else. This is it. He's made that commitment, and if the artist is making that commitment, it's only right that everyone else on the team has that same commitment to what they do to make sure that to give the artist the best chance of success.
So once again, how many artists are in the room?
That's awesome.
And let's see a show of hands. How many artists feel that they have a solid team, a complete team with them?
I'm not raising my hand, so I know.
Thank you.
Come on.
So there's a point there. Tony, how you wear a lot of hats in your company.
Right.
Right. Now talk about the the importance of building the team and what you do to create that team and where you start and how you augment.
Well, at the emerging level, which is what we're doing, a lot of our bands, and we're in the business of growing these bands, and it's kind of an artist development process, and in doing that, you kind of have to do whatever you can, and ultimately you want to find those people on the team and bring those people on the team that are passionate about the artist the same way that you're passionate about the artist, and the same way that the artist has the passion for what they're doing. And in the situation with Big Sam, his agent is here today, Christine Marshall from ICM. Christine had probably seen, I don't think she had missed a Big Sam show. And to show that kind of commitment, and she loved the band, and when you see that, you know that they're going to be successful in working with you, and you want to try to find those passionate people that have the same ideas and can help bring that artist forward. And it's not easy, and while you're doing it, it's a process, and somebody's got to do it, so it's the partnership between the artists themselves and the manager that's working with them to try to fill in the gaps, and then ultimately fill those gaps with people that are professional and that can do it better and keep raising the bar and keeping the artists moving in the direction that they need to be going.
John, in your management company at Silverback, you've developed careers with Sublime and Slightly Stupid, and you've also worked with artists who have built a nice solid base in the Fishbone and Dumpster Funk. Are you at a point right now where you're willing to take a shot with an artist who may not have his team together, or are you looking for artists now that are really at a certain level where they have their team together and you can just plug in and take that into the larger picture?
I don't think for me it's more about the music first and foremost, whether there's a team in place or not. I mean, that's sort of what I try to instill and do, is to put a team together. So first and foremost, it's about being inspired by the art, and that's what I think carries forward. And from that, I try to put a team around whatever it is that inspires me. With respect to New Orleans musician Dumpster Funk, had a bass. They've been playing here since 2003. They have a name that's, obviously historical and popular with their association with the Neville Brothers family. So it was trying to actually just take that further and build upon what they already have, which is, not what you have with every artist, but for me, if it's just about being inspired by the music, and also having the personal bandwidth to be able to give attention to that, because there's a lot of music that I would love to be able to apply that same philosophy to and help, especially from New Orleans. And it's a difficult thing to build a team, because there's not always the financial, like you're saying, to build to success. I mean, it takes an investment, whether that's time or anything else. So you have to be passionate about the music first and foremost, and that's what, for me really is the most inspiring factor.
I want to leave room for questions at the end, but I'd like you guys to talk a little bit about the configuration when you're in the war room and you're building, you're talking strategy for your tours. Is it who's involved? Who is the point person on that? Is it the booking agent? Is it the manager? Is it the artist? Is it the record company? Is it the attorney? Who's involved, and who's really in that discussion?
Well, depending on the label, if the record company is involved in touring run, but usually, for me, I tend to spend a lot, especially in recent years. I tend to spend a good amount of my time talking to my clients' agents. I mean, they're on the ground. They're that front line, first line of defense, working with the club promoters across the country, and it's their job to know what's up and what the right rooms are, and what the right routing is, and what's feasible, and so in terms of tour routing, it starts with conversations between me and my agent, and then we turn around and we talk to our client and we find out what actually take a step back. It starts with what my client wants to accomplish. It starts with what John Michael wants to accomplish. And then from there, it's up to the agent and I really, or the agent and our team, to effectively go out and do that. And then you bring in the publicist, and the publicist, if there's a publicist on board, and the publicist can start working the markets, and but if when I made my label comment, I should couch that with there are definitely labels that can effectively, the sales team can effectively point out, hey, where records are reacting or where radio's reacting, and that's, incredibly helpful when you're on that level of touring. But, when it comes to what the right room is or anything like that, unless they're on the ground there, that was really what I was speaking about, because they do have information and they do have knowledge that can help put your artist in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever we're talking about it, I mean, for me, the team currently is, Marc as manager, agent, PR, and attorney. And usually, because it's such a baby thing in comparison to a Dumpster Funk or a Sam or, Slightly Stupid or something like that, that's, or something else that Marc's working with, like, it's really all hands on deck. I mean, it could come from anywhere. You know what I mean? Whether it be Marc saying, oh, I have this old friend who manages X. Not the band X, but you know what I mean? You really? But so it could be that thing of like, oh, band blah, 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 which is probably an indie band somewhere. But, it could come from the manager. It could come from the attorney who said, oh, I just did this deal for da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and maybe this, would be feasible, or the agent books. It's all hands on deck. I mean, particularly now, it's like the team, we're here to try to talk about how to build a successful touring business, which it's team based.
So what advice would you have for the musicians in the audience on how to build the team?
Well, I mean, that's what I did in 2012 was basically team building, for me, and recalibrating the team to go forward. I think it's just trust and passion. It's like, no matter what you do, I'm a songwriter and singer, and like, I listen to way too much Prince and David Bowie and stuff. So like, that's just what I do. And if there's other people that care about that, and that it's value alignment, you know what I mean? Like Tony said it with the passion, or Marc said it with, the songs have to be there. John said it with, the music first. That's really what it is. It's like if your values align, that's a good place to start. You know what I mean? And do it when you're ready. If you can book your own shows, do it. You know what I mean? But if you get to the point where you can't juggle writing songs. And, I was booking 2, 3, 4-week tours, writing a song a week and recording it while keeping a band together, while going to college. That's a lot. So like if you're saying, oh man, I can't do this, I can't do that, you can, you just have to work. And like Marc said, all of us on this stage could probably make a whole lot more money and be a lot more successful doing something else. But if the bug bit you, find other people where that the bug bit them, and they're just lifers. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah. Tony, you're a full service organization. You do management, you do booking, you do production of events. How do you find the components for the touring, and where do you start? How do you, we talked earlier and you said you branch out. The New Orleans door is open for you, for your other artists. You have success with Big Sam on a more national level, and you've got regional artists like Mia Borders and Sasha Mazakowski. And talk about how the doors are open and what you need to do to pave the road for your artists to take it further than New Orleans.
Well, one comment on that is that people love New Orleans music and love New Orleans musicians, and so that's a good thing. There's some identity and some branding that has existed, and a lot of it has even come post Katrina. I think that there's been a widespread acceptance and just deep love for New Orleans. And if you're looking for something good that came out of Katrina, that I think that's something there, that silver lining. But in kind of taking a step back with was looking at the touring components. You need to first and foremost align the expectations with the artist. And just saying that you're going to go out and do this touring business, that all sounds well and good, and you might have a plan, but if the artist doesn't really understand what's expected, it's not going to work. And you've got to be committed. And then there's also, beyond just commitment and passion, there's some realities. And, not everybody can do it today. Sometimes you've got to do it by taking the time and developing. And, I fell in, there's that one particular story, I fell in love with the music of this one guy. And I had my suspicions that this wasn't gonna work, but I just wanted it to work so badly. And it wound up being one of those situations where everybody was disappointed. And if you're not upfront and everybody's not in alignment, it's going to be a disastrous situation.
Amen. Amen, amen, amen.
And even with what are family obligations, can they really do? You say you want to go on tour, but what does that really mean? And it doesn't. Not everybody can go out do a 6-week tour. Some people, some bands, it's their situation, and this can work just fine, but it has to be just weekends, and until you can build it up.
Totally true.
And the cost of touring has gotten enormously expensive. I mean, most of that revolves around fuel costs. But can anyone speak to the financial realities of touring, whether it's regionally or nationally, and in terms of being ready to bite off as that big of a chunk?
Well, like I said, I think it all starts with an investment, whether it's your time or money. Unfortunately enough, for the artists that I work with in relation to Dumpster Funk, I mean, they have a touring base they started with, and it's about making that business run as efficiently as possible and scaling it based upon realistic expectations like we talked about. And, that's the business side of it, structuring something that you sort of know the financial scale, and you can make the business run efficiently within that. And that, I think, applies whether you're a young artist just starting out, trying to hit the road, or you're an established artist that just wants things to run smoothly. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we try to do is scale and run a business as efficiently as possible.
And I think sometimes the best gig, the best business decision is not taking the gig. And that's really, really hard for somebody. The manager wants it to happen. Obviously, the artist, the band, they're excited, but it doesn't work. And some things just don't, and you just got to let it go.
Don't start a big band. Don't. There's beauty in quartets and trios and solo shows.
Duos.
And duos. Don't start a big band. Because let's be real. Okay, let's be real. If you're the opening act on a really good tour, right? Chances are you're getting $500 a night. That's pretty standard, right? I mean, we all know that whole opening slot, $500 a night. And if you've got 6 people in a band,
Do the math,
right? Yeah. And then you also have 6 people in a band, but then you've got gas too. So you're in a Sprinter van and you're driving, and it's $3.44 a gallon, I think last time I filled up. And how many gallons does it take to get you? It's tough. So like I said, trios, duos, quartets are a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to understand the road ahead before you take it.
I have a little anecdote that doesn't involve John Michael or anyone else up here, but we're talking about getting a band out on the road. I think it was 2005, 2006. I was working with this act, and they had a great idea that they were going to turn they had a Ford van, and they were going to. I think you know this band.
They were going to veggie it?
They were going to veggie it. They converted it to run on grease, and you know these guys well, actually, Dave. And I would get phone calls pretty much and they paid the appropriate converter, and they had all the conversions. And this is not saying don't convert, because the technology is there. If you can make the investment, converting to run on biofuels is a great way to save money. Although it's even trickier to get the grease out of the back of a restaurant like you used to do, 5 or 6 years ago, when you'd be like, "Are you using that?" And they'd fill it up. Anyway, they know. They would call me pretty much every other night with another problem breaking down, and it literally broke. I mean, it literally broke up the band at the end of the day. But it was just this horror story. I mean, even the night my wife was giving birth, I'm getting phone calls saying, I can't pull the trailer, the grease is getting, and I'm like, my wife's in labor, I don't, this is one day I need, But it became this, ever-evolving thing, and it started with a good, a good intention. How can we make being on the road affordable and efficient? And there are ways, I guess there's two sides of this. There are ways to do that, and, you just, as an act, you got to study how, sometimes it's as simple as just staying close to home until don't go to Lawrence, Kansas in the middle of January running on grease when you live in Massachusetts. It's like, but there was a crowd there, there was a business there. So it wasn't that they weren't playing to people, they were trying to build the thing to sustain. And I commend the desire to do it that way. I just, it's also, it can get hairy out there.
We're winding down, so we'd love to open it up to questions. Feel free to step up to a microphone and ask a question.
Hi, my name is Scott, and I'm starting a 19-piece Afro-Brazilian
Don't do it.
klezmer opera ensemble.
Don't do it.
Have you
Don't
met Stephen
do it.
Bernstein?
And
Don't do it.
You've all talked you've used the phrase, keep expectations realistic, unrealistic expectations, manage expectations. Can you just talk a little bit more specifically, or give some examples maybe of, especially the managers, of unrealistic expectations that you've encountered at the beginning of a relationship?
Real
Or John,
quick, as a band leader, you gotta tell it like it is. If you're going on the road and you're gonna expect guys to sleep on the floor and expect guys to live off of X number of dollars a day and things of that nature, you better, especially, right? Man, horn players in this town like hotel rooms. I'm just telling you. No, I'm just kidding. Love them. But you have, as a band leader, you have to tell it like it is. You know what I'm saying? If you're going out on the road and you're going to be sleeping on floors and they expect the Four Seasons, so I know that's really simple, but it's my 2 cents.
I can talk all day.
John?
No, I think that's the hardest part or the challenging part is managing the expectations, whether the band is established or, just starting out there's so many great musicians coming from the city or all over. There's so much talent, and it's that talent really deserves a place and a space. And I think as an artist, you feel that, and there's really no magic bullet in terms of the management or booking side or touring side. It's like it's hard work, and you just have to go put in the time. So I think expectation management is obviously a big thing, and again, it's just making things as efficient as possible. That's really what you can control, and
I think to what John Michael was saying was that and please jump in, but generally, if you're an artist or a band, I would think there's one main person that's the business conduit to the management company.
Sure.
So it's your responsibility as that business conduit, as John Michael was saying, to convey the proper messages to the rest of your touring group, whether you're all equal partners or whether you're the band leader and you have a hired band that you pay per diems or weekly or however your business arrangement works. But I think what John Michael is saying, it's incredibly important to be transparent, honest, and realistic about what's going on.
And the thing of expectations, it goes to a value thing. It's what do you want? If you're here to be famous, if you want to be famous, there's a way to do that. You know what I mean? Get it on reality TV. If you want to be a career artist, there's a way to do that. If you want to be a one-hit wonder, there's a way to do that. If you want to be a touring business, there's a way to do that. It's a value alignment thing, and I think it's just, I know this is something that we didn't talk about, and it seems so simple, But it's like, if you have a team, whether it's a band or a management team or, you know, a group of people, sit down and talk about what you want. It sounds so simple.
And if you don't have a team, sit down and figure out what you want. So, and you don't, I mean, there are plenty of stories in there. You know, we've been spending a lot of time talking about teams, but I think it's important to say there are plenty of stories out there and plenty of musicians out there who build it themselves, and it's not a requirement to have, you know, X person from Red Light or you know, Silverback or, you know, or Hypersoul out there, you know, doing this stuff for you. There's no better, you know, person to you know, clear your vision with than yourself, because if you don't know it, no one else is going to be able to translate it.
Truth.
And I think it also, you should add in here that don't be discouraged and don't let the bug of trying to live through someone else's anecdotes of so-and-so got this, and typically what you hear is there's a kernel of truth somewhere in there about what someone may have gotten for a gig, or you know, and you know, sometimes with my company we also promote shows and do things, and it's kind of, I also give this same idea. You can't book by anecdote, where so and so had, you know, Trombone Shorty play in their backyard for, you know, $200. I remember, so why can't I get that? And I'm like, well, that might have happened, but it's not going to happen for you. So, and conversely, for the artist, you know, so-and-so, I heard so-and-so got paid whatever, and they got this in their trailer, and they did this. So that kind of meanders back to this idea of the alignment and managing of the expectations. And it's just because somebody else got something doesn't mean you're going to get it. And it also doesn't mean that that's what's right.
Right for you, right, exactly.
So,
Question.
Well, I do have a question. I don't want to dwell on the band size thing too much, but I'm going to anyway.
Sure.
You've all recommended I strip it down to 2 or 3, maybe 4 guys, you know? I have a 7-piece band, and the second I can, I'll have a 9-piece band.
Don't strip it down.
And so what?
If it works, do it. You know, if you can make it work, make it work. I couldn't. You know what I mean? I'm just being completely transparent and honest.
Sure.
I couldn't do it.
it's about math. That's
It's
the,
math.
You know, but
It
and
really-
if the people are comfortable
Yeah.
with the math and the expectations are aligned that this is what we're going to do, then it's great.
I guess
Yeah.
my question was more along the lines of, would you recommend trying something else other than trying to pack all these idiots in a van?
No, I mean, no. I think, like, do it if you can make it work. Like, if you've got 7 to 9
2
guys.
vans for 9.
Right? Yeah.
Right. If you've got
One
7
for
to
me,
9
one for
guys.
them.
One for you and one for them, yeah.
If you've got 7 to 9 people who, like, can live up, like, let's say you go play in Lafayette, Louisiana. You go play the Blue Moon Saloon. They guarantee you $500. And the 7 people are like, that's cool. That's great. We're good with that. And we can do that every night. Cool. Are the 7 people going to be cool when it's $300? You know what I mean? For me, what my whole arrangement is like, it was me and hired guns. You know what I'm saying? If we lost our ass, like if we went and played a show for $0, they get paid. You know what I'm saying? And that was the arrangement. So if it's a thing to where, like, everybody's like, okay, we're in this boat together, sink or swim, whatever. We're a quote-unquote democracy or a democratic thing, not what I like to call a benevolent dictatorship, which is what I do.
Strip the benevolence.
Yeah, strip the benevolence. Nice. If they're cool with that, you know, for example, like, I record in a studio of a band that lives here, or from here, and you know, and one of their wives is in the back. And for them, we were having this discussion where they were like, when we started out touring, they were 5-piece bands, sometimes 6 on the road. And their whole thing is they were like, yeah, when we got paid $100, we were like, okay, cool. That's what it is. You know, and that was okay. But when it's a thing like, you know, you're the guy providing that gets hard. You know, if it's a band, like in capital B band, then cool. But if it's that benevolent dictatorship thing, it's hard, man. You know, that's probably why Bob Dylan toured by himself to start off, you know what I mean? And then pissed everyone off at Newport Folk Festival. But anyway, next question. Sorry.
No, well, 7 to 9 as well. If all 7 to 9 people are on the same page, go for it. If everyone knows what they're getting into, that shouldn't stop you. Whatever the money is, whatever it is, if that's how you deliver the sound that you need, who's going to stop you? It's the artistic vision of the band. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And if people will pay it, more power
Do
to
it.
you. When you start stretching out beyond that, and people are saying, well, you may be more expensive than $500, but you're worth 0 tickets in Albany, New York. Like, what are you going to do to make it work for us? Because we can't sell any beer or liquor to nobody, and then we got to pay you, and then we got to open the club. So, at some point, yeah, you can make the argument that it costs more. But at a certain point, what happens is somebody turns around. Now, maybe you have other bands that love you and that want to bring you out and want to make it work for you regardless. So they give you that leg up. I mean, I know I've done it with acts over the years where my clients really loved them and helped them come along and get a good start with it and paid them more than they were worth ticket-wise. And that didn't matter because they were doing it because there was a genuine love and respect for the music that was going on. That's great, but if you're going out there and it's your name on the marquee, that's where it becomes an argument. And I'm saying this, I'm wearing Tony's hat for a second as a promoter, but if you aren't worth the tickets, I don't care that you're not worth that you need more than $500. If you're not worth the tickets, I don't want to pay you anything. And that's not me. I'm just wearing a hat, obviously.
Marc,
I'm all for musicians getting paid.
Marc brings up a great point. He touched on something there that's important for the musicians in the audience. You are your own community, right? So it's important for you. Use your community for information. I'm sure you do already. You talk about all kinds of things artistically, but talk about the business side of things with the artists, maybe that you've known that have gone on to do some big things or bigger things than what you're doing. And maybe you can get a favor. Maybe you can get someone to take you out on the road and open up for them or do something, but use your community in that way.
And this city is the community. I mean, we kind of live in a bit of a backwater to it because John Michael plays music that isn't, the guys have been referring to New Orleans music, and I think we all know what New Orleans music kind of means when you talk about it on a national level, whereas, you're hard-pressed to say, John Michael's from New Orleans, but when the Tulane community or the Loyola community from around the country decides to go to, the show to see the New Orleans band, they're thinking of it in they're thinking of the Dumpster Funks, the Big Sams, the Galactics, the Dirty Dozens. There's a sound to it. So, but the one thing that I will say, and I meant to say it earlier about the New Orleans community, is it doesn't matter whether you fit within the sound or not, because the community, this and Austin, Texas are two of the towns that I've noticed over the years that the musicians have each other's back in a way that nobody else can ever speak to. And that's a huge benefit to all of the musicians out there, because you guys have a foundation, a pool, and it's generational. I mean, it's truly generational, and everything ties back, regardless of the style of music you're playing. Everything can tie back to the beginning. I mean, and the beginning is here, So you guys have that as a tool that's, that I don't think anywhere else in the country or the world has. So,
Great point.
Truth.
Next question.
So I guess, first of all, John Michael, with the paradigm shift of the new band and the new material and stuff, how many pieces do you plan on bringing
4.
on? 4 pieces?
It's 4 of us.
Okay.
It's keys, bass, drums, and me on guitar.
Great. And are you planning on playing maybe smaller clubs?
Oh,
smaller
yeah, we
venues
played the
and stuff?
Hi-Ho Lounge, Wednesday night?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
On the road, you're planning on playing smaller venues, more intimate venues.
We're
and stuff
going
like
back
that.
to the grind, man. It's like we're taking 3 steps back to take 100 steps forward. I mean, that's the thing that we discussed. Because, the My Name Is thing was great. I mean, it was cool. We were killing it. We were doing great. But it was one of those things to where, as a sustainable thing, it didn't make sense, And so we took 3 steps back and said, okay, let's have 4 people. Because if it is going to be a benevolent dictatorship, like we talked about before, it's one of those things that we can make that economically work for where it is. You know what I mean? And make it work to where everybody eats well, lives well, does well. Now, once again, if your band is a complete democracy, if you're, REM or you're Sonic Youth or you're that kind of model or the Dirty Dozen or, whatever it may be, I'm pretty sure it's Ivan Neville's Dumpster Funk, right? I mean, he's the,
It's just Dumpster Funk.
Oh, it's just Dumpster Funk now? Oh, okay. I'm like on the back in the day
And
joint.
those guys have those guys have a great story. All those guys were players in huge touring acts, and they were out there, whether it be the Neville Brothers or whether they were out with Dave and Friends or Trey or
Keith.
or Keith Richards. Yeah, they were all playing as sidemen, and so they were used to, on a certain level, they were used to a whole nother life. And I know you can. I should back off because it's your world, but I know from the stories from those guys that they did a one for all.
Yeah, and I think that's a significant fact is that, they made a commitment to be a band. And actually,
Yeah, totally.
It is a democracy with those guys. And it's 5 very strong personalities, and it's 5 people that in their own right are, music virtuosos in a sense.
Totally.
But they did make the commitment to say, this is what we're doing. We can make other money doing these other things, but they have actually, made something that's their goal, is to make Dumpster Funk a band that succeeds to a level that is, for all of them, meets expectations and goals that can hopefully surpass what they could do as, musicians with Dave or Trey or whatever. So they have given up a certain point of that to, put their commitment towards that.
That's
And,
cool.
It's, they're all, I will say, as far as they are all very smart, educated artists. They have been doing this, and that's to musicians out there is educate yourself and don't think somebody's just going to come in and have a magic bullet to turn your business, upside down overnight. It's those guys have been doing it themselves for a long time, and, they're smart about it. They keep me on my toes, so.
For sure. I mean, my dad, I think how, my old man is an attorney, and he does these thing called operating agreements for bands, like the Nevilles and Dirty Dozen. I think that's how you met my old man at one point. But make an operating agreement with yourself and with your band. It doesn't have to be legal jargon, but it just has to be an understanding of this is what we're gonna do. If it's King James and the Special Men, you know what I'm saying? Literally King James, then that's different than just Dumpster Funk, which is different than what I thought it was, which was Ivan Neville's Dumpster Funk. I thought it was his baby and then everything else. Or if it's Big Sam's Funky Nation versus the Funky Nation democratic thing. It's, just whatever it may be, work it out. Because it's that's more, I've been in more bands that have broken up because of that than anything else,
Next question.
Yeah, and I get to do all that because I'm Sean Ardoin, Zadi Cool.
Nice.
So, but I guess I'm not more benevolent, not necessary dictatorship, but
Oh,
benevolent.
well, I'm sweet, too.
Yeah.
I promise.
So here's my question. Y'all just have basically broke down everything that I'm doing now because I'm rebuilding. And but I know there's technology out there to replace people, but I'm sorry. I mean, there's technology out there to cover what you would have to have a warm body to do.
Right.
And my thing is, with me being, even though I do all kind of other stuff, a Zydeco-based band, there's a perception, for you booking people, there's a perception involved in that. So can I get rid of 2 or 3 people and sonically be cool and my energy still good? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of stuck at this point having a 6-7-piece band.
Well, it's interesting. Take my good friend Teresa Anderson. I just played with Teresa yesterday. Teresa
Thank y'all
Anderson.
for your time, by the way.
Thank you, man. My good friend Teresa Anderson, right? I was her guitar player in 2007, and she and her husband Arthur started developing this concept of looping. And basically, she was phasing out a band so that she could go out on the road by herself and do this looping, the one-woman show. She created this artistic thing based upon an economic need to be able to tour. And now she's a genius. She's a freak. If you've ever seen it, it's like Fred Astaire meets freaky music, queen of harmony, psycho. It's insane. It's the most beautiful, Nordic, beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life. But it just depends. You know what I mean? You can create something and make it. You have to find your equation. I think that's the big thing. We have our equations that we've worked out as panelists and as people in the world, not just standing up here. but like you have to work out your own thing. If it's like, you know, if you're a hip hop act and it's like you and your DJ are gonna go out on the road, that's cool. Or if you're a DJ and you're like, I'm gonna just do that, that's great. If you're a Zydeco cat and you can somehow loop, you know, washboard stuff and then pick up an accordion and loop that and then sing on top of it and grab a fiddle and do that, you know, I don't know, that could be cool. I'd pay $20 to see that. You know what I mean? I mean, whatever it is, just make it correct.
Go start that.
You know, I know, if someone takes that idea, I want 10%, by the way. I'm just kidding.
It's an intricate topic that we could literally talk about all day. Unfortunately, we're out of time this afternoon. I'd like to thank all the panelists for their time and insight today. Thank you for your interest in coming out and your support of Sync Up.
All right, once again, let's hear it for this really great panel. Thank you all so much. All right, looks like the skies are clearing, so we'll see you all out at the festival and then back here tomorrow for the final day of this year's Sync Up Conference. Thank you all for coming.
Well done, guys.
Is that all right?
Great.
Yeah.